Part 8, Delegating Decisions. Success equals doing the right things in small amounts over a long period of time. In other words, creating habits, right? Consistency. So in this section, we're going to talk about stop answering questions. That's the first step to accountability for results and creating an environment for accountability. And then some of the habits that we need to start creating and the language we need to use to start leading an organization in which we are delegating decisions and control to our team. So what do we mean by delegation of decision making? Well, in the past, it used to be we delegated jobs or we delegated tasks or we delegated responsibilities to people, and we've got to move way beyond that. We got to be delegating every day and in every encounter. We got to start delegating decision making and control. Delegating and empowering the entire team to learn to get better, to get more efficient, to cut waste, and to making more decisions and being accountable for the results of those decisions. Get to a point where this business doesn't require you to work. It works without your involvement. Little by little, gradually over time, we'll get to where we want to be. A successful company where you're working in quadrant 2, designing and working on the business, not in the business all day, and your whole operation is going to be more efficient, more productive, and serve your customers better. You can't build this environment of accountability for results without changing the way you lead and changing the way you manage to be a coach. There was a book called Turn the Ship Around by David Marquet. He was a submarine commander, and it was a great book. It is a great book. It's about leading and coaching, accountability and ownership. And it starts with, and the big theme of that book, the first book he wrote, was stop answering questions. Okay, so what does stop answering questions mean? Well, when we're sitting there telling people what to do, people come to us rotely, mindlessly to ask questions. We're working below the line. They come in, they haven't thought about it, it's just habit. They come in, ask you a question, how do I do this, what should I do about this situation? Then you immediately you start talking, and you answer that question for them, tell them what to do. So really what you're doing is just feeding an addiction, that habit. They come, ask questions, you tell them what to do. They come, ask questions, you tell them what to do. And they walk away without any accountability for the results. They walk away because they're going to go do what you told them to do, and they learned absolutely nothing. And all you're doing is just perpetuating this constantly working below the line in your operation. So if you really want to work above the line, you don't answer questions anymore. When they walk in, you ask them, what do you see? They're going to tell you what the problem is. Bob said, this customer told us to do this, and we have this customer over here, and I don't know which one to go to. Then you ask them, what do you think? Well, once they start telling you what they think, well, he said this, he said that. Last time this is what we did. All of a sudden, he's starting to own it, right? He's starting to take responsibility for this and ownership of this. And then what do you think you should do? Well, knowing what I know, and this is what I think I ought to do. This experience we've had, the beliefs I have, here's what I think I ought to do. Now all of a sudden they're starting to solve it, right? And you can get some give and take there. If you want to tweak it a little bit, that's your opportunity to talk about it, help them solve it. But then the last question is, okay, so what are you gonna do and by when? That means they're gonna walk out that door and do it. And when they walk out that door and do it, now they not only own it, but they own the results of what's about to happen because they were the ones that solved it. They're the one that took ownership. So in simple terms, they had to think about the answer and the solution before they walked in there because they knew you were going to ask them. You will say it's a good idea probably 90% of the time. They learn and build confidence in their ability. They leave being accountable for the results. They come to you less because they get more confidence in their ability to solve problems, and they see that you don't want them to come to them with every little problem because you trust them to come up with the right solutions. You delegate decisions and more control little by little as you gain confidence in their ability and competence. Then you've got that confidence, and little by little you're giving them more and more control and more decision making. And it depends, the whole business depends less on you. You're getting more productivity and you're getting a successful company little by little by doing the right things, getting people to work above the line, getting people to be accountable for results. So it goes beyond just answering questions, of course. And the framework that we're going to talk about are 5 steps to delegating decisions and control. We talked earlier about red work and blue work. Red work was the process work, the taking control, the managing. The blue work was thinking, giving that control, and decision making, setting processes and doing those things. The red workers worked the process. The blue workers thought about it, designed the processes. So we want to get to a point where it's making it very easy for the red workers and the blue workers to shift back and forth, and red workers to start making decisions and getting more and more control and looking at processes and continuously improving processes and cutting waste in your organization. Framework 2 is to tune that control. You can't give it all up at once. It's, as we said before, based on competency and clarity. First of all, we have to have more and more confidence in the competency of our people. Little by little, their knowledge, their skill, their training, and then clarity. It's extremely important, as we said, that they understand the key results and the goals that we have set for the company. Everybody understands them, how we measure them. We're tracking and measuring, and all their actions and all their decisions should be working toward understanding those key results and goals that we're shooting for. To make this work, you have to understand there are 4 quadrants of leaders. And I can tell you where I used to be. It was the know-it-all, tell-it-all. And I'm trying to, as a coach, to get more to where I want to be, and I want everyone to be, know-it-all, tell-not. In other words, we want to get into a position where we speak last. We want to get into a position where we might know the answers, but we're not going to tell people the answers. We're not going to speak first and tell people in a meeting what it is that we think we ought to do, what direction we should go, how we should solve this problem. We want to speak last. We want to know it maybe, but we don't want to tell people. We want to get real objective feedback and input in solving problems and taking the business forward, getting people to take ownership, understanding where we're going, and then help us go there, not just tell people what to do. Another key about language is get rid of the word they. That's what David Marquet did in his submarine. The first guy came to him and said, we had this pump's broken and they ordered the wrong part. Nope. He said, that's it. Nobody in this submarine is going to use the word they again. It's going to be we. Everyone's going to be we. There's no blame, no incrimination. We're going to build a team here, and we're all in this together. And each time somebody said they were corrected. Little by little, the language mattered, and little by little, they got rid of that word they. It was always we. How do we coach it? Well, he used the ladder of leadership. And down at the bottom here, you see where we all are. Tell me what to do. Do this. No, we don't want to do that anymore. We don't want to speak first. We don't want to tell people what to do. We don't want to answer questions. We don't want to speak first in meetings. We want people to see it. So by asking, what do you see? We want them to own it. What do you think? Solve it. What do you think we should do? And then do it. What are you going to do by when? Those are the 4 questions we need to ask people in every situation, in every encounter, and get that language in our organization by working above the line, working below the line. What do you see? What do you think? What do you think you should do? What do you intend to do? What are you gonna do, right? And then the last 2, I've done it. Now all of a sudden, after it's done, this becomes part of the process. Whatever the solution was, this becomes part of the experience, part of the beliefs. And I've been doing it, becomes processes. That's the way we've been doing it, and that's where we're going to continue to do it. And we're going to look at it again if it comes up as a problem, but that gets us in a rhythm of continuously improving the company and using experiences and stories and the way we've solved problems to continue to get us better and better. In summary, as a coach, let's start using the right language. Let's start using we instead of they. Let's understand what our key results and goals are, and everybody understands what they are. We want to work above the line, not below the line. And then accountability for results, we want to ask those questions, right? What do you see? What do you think? What do you think you're going to do? What are you going to do and by when? Quick story, a quick example from the book. We talked about questions, meetings, decisions. Well, one of the key results for this hospital was volume. So they sit down with the team and they said, okay, so that's our key result, volume, but how are we going to measure it? What's our goal? What is the key goal that we need to set that's going to increase our volume the most? And so they talked about it and they explored it as a team. So what did they see? And they listened to everybody and they came to the conclusion that reducing emergency diversions by 33%. In other words, they were having in their emergency room at certain times they were having to divert ambulances from their hospital to other hospitals because they didn't have enough room in their emergency room to handle them. So they sat around and they talked about, okay, they started getting people in the room from different disciplines to own this problem. And they talked to the clinic managers. There were clinics around the area that were owned by the hospital. And they said, well, we can't impact that. There's nothing we can do to help with that. And then one of the clinic managers did own it and said, yes, there is. He says, we closed our clinics at 5 o'clock. And if you look at it, the big surge in emergency room visits comes after we close the clinics. So people can't come to us, so they're going to the emergency room. And the people in the emergency room says, yeah, and so what we've got to do is we have to start opening up that time frame and not taking in non-emergency visits, triaging a little bit so that we have room to bring those people in. And they started doing that. They started clearing the decks for that time frame during the day, and they were able to improve their diversions by get it down to 28%. Reduction in the diversions they had. So they got nearly close to their goal in just the first 2 months. So it shows you that they saw the problem as a group, they owned it, they solved it, and they did it. Went out and did it. And what they ended up finding out was that it worked, and the leaders didn't speak first. They let the team come up with these ideas.